So first thing, talk a little bit about the agenda. I think that's kind of a big one. I'll give you a little update on the district. We'll talk a little bit about the future direction of the district, and we'll have some time for questions. I want to talk first of all the start of the year. It really went well, other than we had a little flooding going on, which made things a little bit interesting. This is my 5th year as a superintendent, 20th year in education, and I can tell you I've never ever had a time where I had to call school off or been involved in that because of flooding. Now, of course, we have all the rain, the ice, all kinds of things there. Interesting North Iowa weather, I guess, or Northeast Iowa weather. Staff here, guys, is great. And I tell you what, parents, you should be very, very pleased with the staff here at Turkey Valley. They do a great job. They care about the kids. They want to see every one of them succeed. And I tell you, people say that all the time, but it truly is something special here at Turkey Valley when you watch the way these staff members interact with the kids. Community, again, you're all here because you care about the school, you care about what it is. Anytime we need anything, anytime something comes up, you guys are ready to pitch in. And again, it's really the caringness about the school. You want to see it succeed. You want to see a great part of what it is. My big thing was really to learn and observe is what I did the first semester. I didn't really say a lot. I didn't really implement a lot of changes. My goal with the whole thing, I guess, was just to kind of go in the classrooms, see how things are, come to events, see what it looks like, and just kind of get a general idea of what's this district like and what things are happening. And I really did learn a lot, and I really saw a lot of really positive things. So little things on the district to know. First of all, certified enrollment this year. Certified enrollment is what generates our state funding. It's kind of a big deal. 355.15 students. That's the number of students who attend a public school and live in the Turkey Valley School District. That's an increase of 13.97, or almost 14 students from a year ago. That's a pretty big deal, and that's a pretty cool thing. Students served. Students served are how many students we have who come to this building every day and go to class. We have 343 students that we served, and you can see that's a decline of 2 from a year ago. So our certified enrollment is up 14, but the number of students in our building actually declined by 2. And some of you probably think, how can that be? Well, we have a little thing called open enrollment in Iowa, and this year we had open enrolled students who live in our district and chose to go someplace else. We had 56 of those students. That's 16 more than it was a year ago. And I bring that and I emphasize a little bit because I'll be frank, that's kind of a big deal. And it's the first time I think that it's probably gotten that high. Open enroll in, we had 44 students who live in other districts and chose to open enroll back to our school district. 44 is no change. So if you look plus 16, last year we had 40 kids open enroll out. This year we had 56. That's a big jump. Finances, always going to be a concern in this district, and I'll be honest, they're a concern in every single district. But I just want to give you a little idea here. These kids are all kids that decided to go someplace else for whatever reason, and everybody has their own personal reasons. Sometimes it's easier because you work someplace else. Sometimes it's just more convenient. There's a lot of different reasons to it. But I think it's important to understand here that if just 2 or 3 of those students would have stayed here, that'd make a huge difference in the finances of the district. And that's something that to be very frank, is something that I'm working to try to remedy, find out why did they leave and what can we do to make it better, I guess. So finances, go a little bit deeper with that. Our unspent authorized budget. Talk a lot about things in school finance and it gets complicated. This is the most important thing you need to know. What the unspent authorized budget is, it's kind of like your credit limit. A school can really spend what we want as long as our unspent authorized budget always remains positive. As soon as it becomes a negative number, then we get in trouble, the state gets concerned, and actually after 3 years, they've been known to come in and shut school districts down. And so when we talk about making budget cuts or recommendations, it's usually because we got to do something with our unspent authorized budget. So I'll give you a little data. Way back in 2010, our unspent authorized budget was $479,000. 2011, you can see it jumped up. 2012, it jumped up over $1 million. 2013, it started to go down. 2014, it went down again. In 2015, you can see it dropped to its lowest point. In fact, as you look at it there, you can see 2010, it's lower than it was then. And then last year, everybody in the district made some adjustments. The board worked hard. The administration worked hard to kind of make some things better. And you can see we had a little increase in our unspent balance going the other direction. And again, as long as this number remains positive, we're in good shape. Right now, at this point in time, I estimate it's going to increase just a little bit more this year, about $600,000. And then going forward, if we don't make some adjustments, it'll start declining again. The recommended level for that, how big should that number be? I figure about 5 to 15% of your budget. I personally prefer about 10% as kind of my personal goal. Our budget's about $4.7 million. So as long as we're over $470,000, we're looking pretty good. Now, it's not something we're going to ignore. It's not something we're going to say, hey, we can do whatever we want. We can't do that because, as I said, finances are always going to be a concern at Turkey Valley. Just as they're always a concern in New Hampton, they're always a concern at any school across the state, especially when you look at where funding is for schools right now. But right now, the district's moving in the right direction. And I think that's an important message we get out there, because when we talk about people open enrolling, people choosing other districts, sometimes I think the message gets that, holy cow, that school is going to be broke in a year or two. What's going to happen? And that's just not the case, guys. Just not the case. Future looks good. Not easy, but the future does look good. Things are starting to turn around a little bit for us. A few more things with the update. Iowa assessment data. I always like to get this information out. Iowa assessments, we take those every year. They take them in the wintertime here, usually in November, I believe, if I recall. And this kind of gives you an idea of how many kids we have that are proficient by grade level. In other words, the state of Iowa says everybody who scores above a certain level is proficient on the Iowa assessments. And we try to get everybody proficient, but that gets to be really challenging to do sometimes. Now, to look at the data, you got to understand there's a whole lot of things that go on, and this only measures the test or the student scores on one particular day of the year. They're having a bad day, if something's going on, I mean, there's a whole lot of things that fit into it. And so you always got to remember that as you look at these scores. But going across, you can see we got reading, third grade, 85% of our third graders are proficient in reading, 90% in math, 90% in social studies, 95% in science. I look at this data, and I tend to look at a few other things. I tend to look at the tests as well. And usually, social studies and science are pretty intensive reading tests. And then you look and you go, but boy, the reading score is 85, but in social studies and science, it's a lot better. And so I think maybe something else is going on with it. As you continue to look through the data, you can see we've got a few areas to work on, a few grade levels that, probably got a little work to do. But again, you got to kind of sit back and say, okay, are there anything else going on? What is it that we need to do to try to make sure kids get where they need to be? One thing I'm going to talk about a little more later is reading. Reading is probably the most universal skill that we need to have kids. We need kids to have. And we spend a lot of time in this district working with kids individually with our Title I programs. We're now working with our differentiated accountability team to try to find out what do our kids need so they can be great readers. Because if you struggle in reading, you already heard me say it, you're going to probably struggle in these other areas as well. As parents, biggest thing you do is get your kids to read, buy them books, read to them. Anything at all you can do with that is what needs to happen. Any questions about the Iowa assessment scores? A couple other things I guess I'll share with you as far as the district goes. Here is a report that's put out by the Department of Ed. The Department of Ed is required by the legislature to rate every school building in the state of Iowa. And they have to rate them based on priority, in other words, needs a lot of help, needs improvement is next, acceptable is here, commendable is here, high performing, and then exceptional. This is Turkey Elementary, and you can see it's a commendable, which puts it in the top half of the schools in the state. The Department of Ed says that's a good place to be, not a lot of really big concerns. As you look through all these, this is the overall score. This is our proficiency, and you can see at Turkey Valley Elementary, this red dot is the state average, and you can see the Turkey Valley Elementary kids are above the state average. Closing the gap. That looks at all of our students who are on free and reduced lunch, our students who are English language learners, and our students who have IEPs. How do they do compared to everybody else, and how much do they grow? And again, you can see here at Turkey Valley, we're well above the state average. Next one's college and career readiness, annual expected growth, attendance. Attendance, you can see we're right at the state average. And that's one, quite frankly, we're starting to see inch up a little bit. So we got to kind of keep an eye on that attendance. And then down here, staff retention. Again, here's another one. We're below the state average in staff retention, and that reflects how many teachers do we lose in a given year's time. And I mention that again because the message has been out there a lot. What's the future of Turkey Valley? And that puts doubt in people's minds for their kids. That puts doubt in people's minds when they're working here. Turkey Valley High School. Again, looking at it, you can see it's acceptable. Still right there in the middle range where the majority are. You can see proficiency we're a little above. Closing the gap a little bit low. Got a little bit of work to do there. Those are challenges. College and career readiness growth. But their college and career readiness, you can see we're in good shape. Coming down, graduation rate looks great at 100%. That's awesome. State average is about 90%. Attendance, and then coming down here, staff retention, again, is kind of a concern. Down at the very bottom is a parent participation survey. And this isn't part of the score this year, but it will be next. And so we'll probably be doing a little bit this spring to work on that as well. Here's another report about schools, school districts. It's called the Iowa Post-Secondary Readiness Report. And this is for Turkey Valley High School. In Turkey Valley High School, 75% of our students who graduate each year over the last 3 years entered a public community college or public university here in Iowa. Now, the state average for that is 71%, and so we're above that. And that doesn't look at the private schools. It doesn't look at those who enter the military and other options. So our kids seem to have that together. The other one that I really like to look at is right here. This is the percentage of students who graduated from Turkey Valley High School, who went on to a community college or went on to a public university and had to take a remedial coursework. In other words, they weren't ready for that level of work, and so they had to take additional work there to get ready. 18% of our students did have to do that, and again, that compares to 23% overall for the state. So well below the state average, which is a real plus. Our kids are prepared when they leave here. You know, everyone looks and says, man, we don't have enough offerings and things. We don't, but they get a great basic fundamental education that they can go out and do what they want with. And this really reflects that. So that's that solid education and the fundamentals. They're prepared. Somebody wants to go on to college and do something, they leave here, we can make that happen. We can make sure they got what they want to do. They leave here well prepared. Our teachers know and care about the student's success. You know, one of the nice things about a small school is the teachers know the kids well, and most of the teachers know you as parents. And you know what? When you know the parents, and in many cases I'm sure they're friends, you want to make sure they get taken care of. And I just see it every day here. Our teachers make sure our kids are taken care of. One of the other things we're working to do is we want to provide as many opportunities as possible for a school our size. Create some challenges, but with technology, we think we're closing that gap quite a bit. You see me reaching down here, trying to advance this as I go. So always looking for expanded opportunities. This year, we offer 2 in-house vocational agriculture courses. That's something we added, and we're trying to see if we can add a 3rd for next year to keep that going. We're in a rural community. Vocational agriculture should be an important part of the school, and we're working to improve that. We have an FFA chapter now. Haven't had one of those for quite a while. That FFA chapter currently has 18 members, but we certainly hope it continues to grow. This year, one of those members got the chance to go to National Convention, which is a great experience for him. This spring, we'll be doing Cinderella. Mr. Adams has been working hard with the kids on that already. And we'll have 50 students. And I just want you to think about that. 50 of them. Think of the size of our high school. That's a big majority of our high school students participating in that event. So I think that's a pretty exciting thing as well. I know last year, I think there was some confusion about the musical or drama, and that didn't happen. We want those things back to where they belong. So future direction of the district. Let's talk a little bit about that. I first want to talk about sharing the superintendent. You know, when that happened, there was a lot of thoughts of, is the board doing this because they want to do something with New Hampton? And I'm just going to say it right now publicly for everybody to hear. That's never been a part of the conversation. That's never been part of the idea. I believe they chose this because they wanted to do, that was good. Am I back? Okay. I believe they chose it because they just wanted somebody with a little more experience at this point in time. There is no agenda to try to do something with the districts. We share what we share because I guess it benefits both districts. You know, the teaching things that we made changes with, we added environmental science, but a lot of it had to do with our neighbor we used to share with discontinuing the sharing with us. We didn't discontinue with them. And so I guess that whole idea of, well, geez, how long are things going to happen before Turkey Valley goes to New Hampton? Well, a very long time. In fact, I don't plan to be the person involved with it because I hopefully will be long retired and gone before that discussion ever comes up again. And so I think you guys need to be aware of that, and you need to get that word out there. I think that's an important one. The reason they share is, guess what? It benefits both districts. How does it? Well, first of all, we share the costs. My salary, my benefits are split between the districts. They're not split 50-50 though. They're split based on the number of students each district has. So it's basically take my total expense, divide it by the total number of students, and Turkey Valley will pay their share based on the size they are. New Hampton pays their share based on the size they are. That seemed to be the most fair way to do it. One other thing to note, both districts, both New Hampton and Turkey Valley, do receive some bonus funding from the state for doing it. That's a real big thing today. We need to try to maximize as many dollars as we can. Next year, Turkey Valley and New Hampton will each get $53,783 from the state, just in extra funds. Other sharing we do, again, we share some staff to try to reduce costs. We also share maintenance director. We also share some transportation director, some other things that, again, provide additional dollars from the state and help both districts as we try to manage our costs with what we do. And so when we look at it, it's a two-way win for both districts. You know, and people say, boy, you're just doing this because, well, we're doing it because it's a good thing for both districts and helping them control expenses, helping Turkey Valley manage what we have as well. I'm going to back up a second here. So one of the things I want to talk about here is our primary goal. And our primary goal right here is centered around these kids right here. This is our current kindergarten class. They're going to graduate in 2029. I got to believe their parents, and some of these parents, any parents out here of kindergarten students? Yep, great. Got to believe you sent your child to Turkey Valley because you expect them to graduate from Turkey Valley. And they're going to graduate in 2029. That's one of my big goals here. These kids came here, these parents entrusted us with the education of their children this year in kindergarten. They want to be here in 2029 when they graduate and they want to get a Turkey Valley diploma. That's the big goal we're going after, folks. What are we trying to accomplish? This is it. Hashtag TV 2029. Haven't done a lot with it because I wanted to save it for this meeting, but you'll start looking for that. Get that out there. TV 2029. That's what it's about. You know, I'm doing the math. In 12 years, in 2029, I'll be 64 years old. That would be great to be a part of this district and see those kids do that. Be a great goal, great thing to see, and that's kind of where we're working at. So I want you all to be aware of that. And again, get that word out there. Now, some points related to that, and I think this is important to note. First of all, the diploma is a great thing and it's what we want, but it does go a lot more beyond that. You know, we can run a school as cheap and cut it down as much as we want, but we also need to make sure those kids are prepared for the world they face in 2029. I think that's an important point as well here. It's not just about getting to 2029 at the school. It's about making sure they get the best education possible. Because what parent doesn't want that? And they want them well prepared. They want them in a position where they can get the skills they need. Pace of change in our world is accelerating. The world's changing very, very quickly, and it's happening faster all the time. Give you a couple examples here. Now, I'm sure many of you recognize bean walking. I tell you what, I made a lot of money as a kid bean walking. I got to bean walk as much as my dad wanted me to bean walk because he tended to line that up for me. Or detasseling. We still do a little bit of this, though I was just reading recently where the genetics, they're probably going to see the end of that before long because they can now make it so they no longer have to do that, which I find kind of interesting as well, something I didn't think about. And certainly baling hay, I did a lot of that. Again, a little bit. But we don't do those things anymore. We tend to do things more efficiently in what they are. It's kind of the way progress works. Heck, when I was going to school, I had a lot of my friends who worked at fast food restaurants as well. And again, those were all great jobs, things that happened, but some of those, you know, have gone away because technology and other things have taken their place. All those things we used to do are changing quickly. So we hear about fast food workers. Well, fast food restaurants are now looking at automating that process. No reason to have someone there if you can have someone who can go up to a machine, place your order, and have it delivered to you. Self-checkouts, you've certainly all seen those in stores already. Again, ways you reduce help, ways you reduce people's positions. Factories. 50 years ago, it would have been men lined up down those factories doing all that work. Today, it's automation. And of course, banks. I was just reading, Chase last year laid off around 12,000 tellers nationwide. And they figure they're probably going to do double that amount this year. Because again, costs are what it's about. We tend to probably do our banking online, ATMs, other places. And so all those jobs, all those things people used to do are being replaced with automation. And that's going to continue and increase as time goes on. In 2029, some of the jobs that are out there today probably won't be around anymore. And there will be jobs then that we won't even know yet what they are. You've all heard about the self-driving cars. A little over 1 million miles on them right now. In fact, they're really getting pretty serious with what we're going to be doing with those. I don't know if you've seen this yet or not. Uber, the ride-sharing service, has now started their semi-truck. In fact, they just made their first delivery about 2 months ago. Notice there's no driver in that truck and it's going down the interstate. Now, a lot of you probably are like me, are going, are you kidding me? And right now, I do think that's where we're at. But at some point, we're going to get more comfortable with it. And it is going to be where it is. Now, you think about all the truck drivers out there in the world and how those positions, which used to be fairly decent positions and do things, that's going to change a lot if they get that. I think they've got it figured out. They just got to get it so we all trust it, because I think where they're headed with it. My point in all this is simply things are changing. The world's changing quickly, and it's getting quicker all the time. And the skills our graduates need are changing with it. And I'm not sure what we used to do in education fits anymore. And so we do need to make a few changes. We need to look at things a little bit differently. And I just got to say here, the staff here would have seen this last Monday, but we didn't have school with the ice storm. So they're seeing it for the first time as well. But I think this is an important thing, and I'm excited because I know they're a very open-minded staff and will be excited about some of these things I share as well. So we need to prepare these kids for their world, not ours. All those things we used to have, they're all changing, and they're changing quickly. You look at kids use technology today, it's second nature to them. We need them to be innovators, collaborators, makers. We need them to have the skills to do all those things when they leave here. We need them to be problem solvers, and we need them to be questioners. And I found this quote, I'm reading a book right now called Creating Innovators, and this just really got me. You know, 4-year-olds, they're asking questions all the time. You know, they come up to you, hey, why is this? Why is this? We all know that. But you find an 8-year-old, they don't ask you any questions anymore. And I think we as schools sometimes take that out of them because they figured out, guess what? We're more interested in the right answer. We're not very interested in what question you have. And I'm not sure that's a good thing. In fact, I know for someone trying to make a difference, someone trying to become an innovator, collaborator, problem solver, we need them asking good questions. And those are the focus that I think we've got to get to in the district. Memorizing facts, doing worksheets. You know, I've got to ask you, how many of you have worksheets that you complete in your work every day? Well, some people probably have some paperwork to do, but doing worksheets, filling them out, and getting them checked, probably not high on anybody's list. And those are the types of things, memorizing things, we just don't do as much. We need to know where to find the answer. We need to know how to solve problems. And we need to know how to make, create, or whatever it is we can do to see what the next thing is. So how do we do this? Well, technology is always going to be a big part of it. And I'm a big technology guy. But you know, I'm starting to see some of the negatives of technology. And they're starting to talk about it a lot more. I always tell everybody, my second or third year as superintendent, I was meeting with a parent. There was a parent and a child, and they were upset about phones. And I asked the parent to take the phone and hang on to it, sitting in my office. And the phone buzzed because somebody had sent him a text or Facebook or something. And the student about jumped across the table to get the phone. And the parent would let him do it. Well, what we know now is that's almost like a high for kids, because when they post something on social media, somebody responds, and it's like, ooh, I feel important. People are looking at my stuff. Now, they get too involved with that, it becomes all-consuming. And you've seen all the ads for all the accidents that happen on roadways. Well, guess what? A lot of that's because kids just can't do it because it's such a high to know that somebody looked at my Facebook post or my Twitter feed or my Snapchat picture or something. And so we got to do a better job of training kids in that. That means, you know what? We got to get kids to understand that they can live without this for an hour. They don't need to have it with them all the time everywhere they're at. The other thing is the internet, as people become more and more used to it, there are a lot of people out there that'll do things that they probably shouldn't be doing. And that just continues to expand. And from a safety standpoint, make sure you know what your kids are doing on the internet. There are a lot of people out there trying to lure kids and do things that, you know, you just, 30 years ago, nobody worried about. I remember I lived on South 10th Street, and you ran all night, you know, and you did lots of things, and the lights went off, and you went inside for the night. Nowadays, I'm not sure you could do that as much anymore, especially with the way the internet is. We'll also be doing some project-based learning, trying to work into some projects, getting kids that hands-on experience to apply all those basic educational things we've been doing. That's a real important part as well. Can you apply what you know? Relevance. We want to bring the outside into the school. We need the kids to see, why do they need this information? Why do they need these classes? When I met with the staff back in October, one of the things they notated was we need to get the school back into being the hub of the community. We need to get you as parents and business and community leaders back into this building as much as we can, because you bring that relevance and that importance to the students. And of course, we're going to have a continued focus on literacy. We know that kids who are successful and adults who want to be successful can communicate through reading and writing. They can understand what's happening. They have the best opportunities ahead of them. And we're going to want to partner more with the community with what we've been doing. Businesses, I'm going to be coming looking for you. What are things you can do to come talk to our kids? Or can we get kids out to visit with you so that they understand what the real world's like? We've all heard those comments in the past. You know what? There's school, but then you got to see what the real world's like. And we need your help to do that. Parents, we're going to be looking for volunteers to help us with things, because you know what? You start doing all this stuff together, it takes a lot of time. And I'm going to tell you, our teachers' time is full. You know, when they're right now, they're going, oh man, he's putting something else on our plate, because I'm going to tell you their plates are full and overflowing. And so we're going to need some help with this. And so we're going to look for some volunteers. We'll try to get something in place so that we can make it easy for people to come in and help out. I think that's a really, really important part of this whole plan, is get everybody in. And we're going to talk a little bit more time on explicit people skills. Something we hear over and over and over from businesses is kids leave today and they don't know how to interact with others. You know, someone's working together with a group of people. Pretty soon somebody starts saying something, they get angry, and boom, they leave. Or they don't have the skills to get together, work in a group. Again, back in October, the staff identified one of the big things we need to work with our kids is to make sure they graduate here with kindness and compassion. We want the kids to feel that, and that's one of the focuses we'll be having here in our staff development coming up in February. Working on improving in kindness and compassion in our students. So activities, again, I want to just to mention to talk about that. Activities are a key part of Turkey Valley Pride. It's what makes a school a school. It's what makes this school, it's what it is. A lot of students, when they come to school, they're not here for the academics during the day, unfortunately. Some of them are here because of all the things that happen after school. They get excited for that. I'm working to put everything back into the budget here, so they're Turkey Valley programs. So it's Turkey Valley Cross Country. So it's Turkey Valley Wrestling run by the school. And the same thing with cheerleading. That's the direction that we've had. But I got to tell you, parents, I need your help. The school needs your help. Encourage your son or daughter to participate. Sometimes it's a numbers game. We need as many kids out as we can, because you know what? That helps the whole program, and it helps the feeling of pride. There are a lot of lessons that are taught and a lot of lessons that are learned by being a good teammate. And I used to always tell my boys, and I used to always tell students when I was a principal, you know, maybe that's not your favorite sport, but maybe this is your favorite sport, but these guys who are over here went out for this because they wanted to be with you. Maybe you could return the favor over here and go with them. Nobody's ever gotten hurt by going to a sport that maybe they're not the greatest at, but maybe they're okay. And sometimes they get into it and all of a sudden they realize, hey, it's not near as bad as I thought it was. And I think we all know kids who are busy, kids who are active, tend to be more successful, have a lot more things going. So, this is just going in and out on me. So, parents, anything we can do to keep those numbers up, that's an important thing and makes it a whole lot easier to work it into the budget for us. We want to offer as many opportunities as possible. We want our kids to have all the activities, all the things they want. And of course, we have to keep mindful of the budget. We got to keep mindful of the finances. But I got to believe if we got kids who want to do it, when I look at the caring and compassionate people we have in this community, I think we'll find a way to make it work. That's my goal. That's what I'm here for. Provide whatever we can for these kids. I want to talk a minute about communication. I think it's been going well, but I just want to my expectations, just so you kind of know what it is. If you have any concerns, any concerns about anything, you should try to start with the immediate person. So let's say your child has a concern with the teacher, or you have a concern with the teacher. we'd ask that you or your child start by visiting with that teacher. I think this process, that's where that can be handled the easiest. If you go anyplace else, in the end, it's got to go back to that person because that's the only one that can fix it. If that doesn't work, then your next step would be the building principal. If that doesn't work, then you come to me, the superintendent. And if that doesn't work, then you'd go to the school board if you don't like the response you'd receive from me. And it's just kind of a step process there, because in the end, if you jump around a little bit, then what happens is let's say you come to the superintendent first, well then I got to go down and talk to the teacher, get the facts, whereas if you start there, most times it can be handled. Now there are certain instances where it's just not going to work because you've done those things or you've reached out and haven't gotten a response, well then you should go to the next level and get assistance with it from there. It's an important thing, and it's not about not communicating, because communication is the most important thing we can do. I'm going to tell you, none of the staff here, nor do I wake up every morning, I want to come here and do the best job I can. So if you got concerns and that's not happening, you need to let us know. That's important. Ideas. You know, I have a lot of ideas, but I don't have a monopoly on them. Everybody's got a lot of great ideas, and some of you already shared them with me, and I appreciate that. Reach out anytime. Contact me. Contact Carol, anyone that you think would fit. We want to hear what you have to do. But I always tell everybody, if there's a good idea out there, let's see how we can make it happen. May not be able to make it all happen, but I think if we work together, we can certainly do things to make this the best school it can be. My email address is up there. Feel free to email me anytime. And there's my cell phone number as well. Feel free to give me a call anytime you have a concern or that. Everybody hopefully picked up about 6 Post-it notes, so if you wanted to jot those down on there to have them, you certainly can. So your Post-it notes. I'm kind of almost done with the presentation here, actually, so this is going well. Your Post-it notes. Ask you to pick up at least 6 of them. You really only need at least 3. But I'd like you to take one Post-it note, and I want you to think about the things we can improve or even make better here at Turkey Valley. This is your chance to get direct feedback back to myself, and I'll share it with all the board members as well. What are things that we need to improve here at Turkey Valley? On a second Post-it note, any general thoughts you might have about the presentation tonight? Any general thoughts you might have about the district or anything else that doesn't fit a different category? And then my last one is what I call celebrations. What are the things that you think we're doing well? What are the things that, hey, you know what? We want to make sure somebody knows about that. What list those? Before you leave tonight, and you don't need to get up now, but you can see I've got 3 pieces of paper, each one with a note at the top as far as where it is. Before you go, if you would please put your Post-it notes under each category, I'd greatly appreciate it. And as I said, I'll compile that and give that to each of the board members so they get to see it as well. I'm going to tell you, we're really, really lucky to have the board members that we do. They care about this district. They really do want to make it the best that it can be, and they're very conscious of what that takes. They work hard to learn what they can about education and school finance to make sure the district is running well. Last thing I have, guys, is time for questions. What questions do you have for me? All that and none? I'm really good at wait time. Yes?
The feedback from the state, what years was that based on?
That would have been through 2014. So, yeah.
This is the open enrolled kids out of the district. Is Trinity part of that, or is that not?
That is not part of it. That is, those kids aren't counted in any of those numbers. Okay, I'm sorry. Yep, I have a question. Are the Trinity kids included in the open enrolled numbers? And they are not. They are not included in any of those counts. And then Amanda asked about the survey numbers as far as how the kids, the readiness, and that's from 12, 13, and 14, 2012, 2013, 14.
Can you tell them that those that open enrolled in were people that moved in and then stayed in their own districts?
Yep. Yep. The 16 students that open enrolled out are actually students that, for the most part, never attended here. In many cases, or most cases, they lived in a neighboring district, moved to our district, and then open enrolled back to the district they were at. Now, that's again, something, we got kids, people want to live in our district. What do we do to get them here? Good. Other thoughts? Yeah.
What's the school's goals on students graduating with college credits or things like that?
What is the school's goal with that? We don't really have a set goal with it, but myself personally, I try to get as much as we can. Now, one of the things that I always look at is making sure it's relevant and also that it will transfer everywhere. Now, a lot of college classes at the community college, they'll transfer, but they don't really apply to any degree. And so we're trying to increase that, but it does create some challenges, though we do have some good online presence with it. Okay. Other questions? Yeah.
When a student opts to opt out, do you do like to interview? Do they have to put a reason?
They do not have to put a reason. Usually in the spring, I'll usually try to reach out to them and kind of get some thoughts if I haven't already. But they don't have to have any reason as long as they meet the deadlines or the guidelines put in by the state of Iowa. Yep. Any other questions?
Do you have your communication, your chain of line that you want people to go through?
Yeah.
And that, usually that's something maybe that isn't going well. Do you have that same command of line as far as if there's ideas that someone starts with the immediate person, does that eventually get to you?
I would say for ideas, you should feel free to go whoever you think is going to have the best opportunity to implement that idea, is what I would say. Does that make sense? So if you got something in a classroom idea that you think would be shared with the teacher, I'd encourage you to do that. If you have something school-wide, I would say you probably want to talk to Carol or myself. Does that make sense? Yeah.
I was just curious if you hear those things too, like if the immediate person shut down the idea, was the superintendent and the school board aware of that idea?
I can't answer that right now, but I think it's something we'll probably talk about to make sure it does happen. But good point, I see what you're saying. And it was really, if an idea is brought up for one person, does it get shared with everybody else? Okay. Anybody else? Yeah.
What is our state aid per student right now?
Say that again.
Well, when you're talking open enrollment in and out, what is each one student worth back from this?
I believe it's $6,758 is what it'll be next year if they get 2%, I believe. I'm kind of pulling it off my head there, but I think that's what it is. Let's see if No, I didn't have it. I thought I did. Okay. Other questions? Yeah.
When you say you're looking to increase opportunities as far as the students, as you're well aware, some of the past changes resulted in parents having to fundraise in order to make that happen or looking for other opportunities. Is that going to become part of that fix? Is that we're still going to have to be looked at for fundraising efforts, or are those programs actually going to become instituted out of the school budget fund?
Well, asking about, we had to fundraise some items before, some extracurricular activities. We're also looking at other districts. And basically, right at this point, the board has directed me to see what I can do to get them fit into the budget. We believe that's an important piece of Turkey Valley. I think some of the board members may say maybe went a little too far last time with it. But I think you got to say also you tried something to see how it worked or not. And is there better opportunities or not? We hope so. We hope we can get it fixed in there. So our intent right now is to get it back into the budget. Other questions? Yeah. Yes.
I look around here and I see some nice new faces, but I also see a lot of the same faces. How are we going to start reaching? There's some of us that have been out here and in full support for a long time, and I'm more than happy to do it, but how are we gonna start reaching out to some of these younger families who have, placed their trust in us and getting, you know, these kindergarten parents and stuff? Because I understand when I had children at preschool and kindergarten, it was like being thrown to the wolves, and how do we open that door to get those parents involved?
And I'll be honest, we're looking for ideas. You know, that's one of the things. I'm videotaping tonight's presentation. We'll post this online so anybody can see it. But you're right. It's how do we get everybody engaged? You know, because it's going to take everybody. You know, that's what it's about. So you're absolutely right. How do we get the other people engaged who aren't here tonight to also take an interest and be involved? And that's something we've got to work on and try to figure out. And it's a big thing. And the state recognizes it as well. You know, you saw that's a bottom category in those rating sheets. How do you get parents involved in what's going on at the school? So we're open to ideas if anybody has one, but it also, I think, comes back to kind of that community hub piece. So, yeah.
You keep talking about the local level. What can be done as far as parents on a state level to try to change things the way the state is doing to improve Turkey Valley without doing it here?
Well, I guess, you know, the direct result would be to contact legislators to make sure they understand the importance we see in maintaining small schools. You know, directly they would say they agree with that. Indirectly, you know, they make decisions sometimes that maybe don't understand the impact that it has. One of the big ones that we're looking at, supplemental state aid is going to be 2% is what the governor's proposed. They seem to think that's where it's going to be. But one of the things that would impact Turkey Valley would be if we'd reach out to our legislators and say, hey, you know what? Because we're a rural school, we spend a lot of money transporting kids to our district every day. And if there was some way the state could help us out with that, and it's not just Turkey Valley, it's most rural schools. You know, we spend a lot of money per kid just to get them in the door. And if we could free those dollars up through some avenue that they came up with, that would help a lot. And I would say there's usually some forums, usually around the area, where the legislators show up, and it's a great time to say, where are you at on this? What ideas do you have? The Iowa Association of School Boards, they're working on proposals to address this, but they don't like to hear from educators. You know, the legislators tell us over and over again, we want to, what do the parents want? Because you guys have a vested interest as educators. What is it the parents want? And so I would say that would be one, if you wanted to reach out and talk about, hey, what can we do to get that fixed for us so that we can get a little equity here? Because every dollar I don't spend on transportation, I can spend on education programs here in the district. And that adds up really fast. The other one that's really big that I think we have some hope with is extending the 1-cent sales tax. Right now, the 1-cent sales tax is going to expire in 2029. Now, last year, you may remember Governor Branstad suggested freezing it, giving the schools where it freezes in 2029, and then taking any increase and moving that to water quality. Well, that didn't have any traction in the House or the Senate, but there may be an opportunity this year to, again, contact the legislators and let them know, hey, this is an important thing to schools, and I'm going to tell you it's really important right here in Turkey Valley, because that's an avenue of money that doesn't take out of the general fund. We can use it for maintenance of the buildings, but we can also use it for some things like technology. There's some other areas there that really will benefit the kids directly. Indirectly, it does a lot of things. We use that all the time, but indirectly, we can really get that to help the kids. So 1-cent sales tax and transportation costs, get those taken care of for rural schools. That'd be huge. Yeah?
Do you have links on the website so parents know how to contact their?
I don't, but we'll get those on there. Carol, can you make a note of that? I don't have any thanks. Other things. You know what? Nothing I like more than visiting with people during the day. So if you're ever around, call my office, set up an appointment and stop in, or give me a call. You know, that's the nice part of my job, is get to meet lots of people and see lots of things. So, any other questions tonight?
What are the time frames when you're here in Turkey Valley?
Right now, I'm kind of alternating days. I'm usually here one morning, and then I go to New Hampton in the afternoon. So like every Monday morning, I'm usually here. Then I'm in New Hampton in the afternoon, and then Tuesdays I'm usually in New Hampton in the afternoons here. So it's kind of every other afternoon, every other morning, but it fluctuates with meetings and things. So it's usually best if you call. Joan has my schedule. She usually knows where I'm going to be most of the time. So but I do try to be in the district every day, at least for part of the day. Yeah.
Do you guys have anything set up in the email here at the school that would somehow block if we're sending from, like, I've had a couple teachers that sometimes say that my emails end up in their junk mails or somewhere else and then get opened right away. Is
Okay.
there any way that that can be, and I know you guys need to keep everything kind of virtually locked
Right.
on the other end because of the kids and that, but
You know,
sometimes I just feel like maybe I'm getting lost in the virtual.
okay. Well, I got Junior sitting over there, my tech guy, so he'll make a note of that and see. And if we have a specific teacher, Junior Hackman, he takes care of all our technology here this year. So if you don't know Junior, please say hi. He's doing a great job to get things going and keep things going for us. If something's going to somebody's junk mail, we just need to make sure they get it so we can get the filtering, because we do use filters.
It could be mine, you know.
Yeah, could be any
On my
place.
end, but I just don't know.
Yeah.
I'll be-
Other questions? Well, with that, I'll be around here for a while. If anybody wants to stop in and visit, please do. Otherwise, thank you all for coming. Dave, yeah? Oh, yes, absolutely. I'm sorry. I forgot all about that. Yep.
I want to thank Mr. Jerns for allowing me to brief moment here to talk about. I'm Dave Anderson,